Welcome to Fixing Bad Writing, the series where we take crappy stories written by AI and see if we can make them good, or at least a little bit less crappy. As the first episode in this series, I want to tell you a bit about why I've decided to do this. And the main reason is I've done podcasts for a long time. I've interviewed a lot of different writers, a lot of best-selling writers, a lot of award-winning writers, and we talk about the processes, the different techniques that they use. But I've never really found a walkthrough, almost like someone doing something there and then, almost like watching someone play computer games. But you never really see videos of someone writing because, in fairness, that would be quite boring. So, what I've tried to do here is come up with a quick editorial thing, which is based around a one-paragraph story, and I'm gonna work through this story, talk you through the process that I usually follow, and then the idea is to inspire you to see this as a shared exercise and a challenge, and to give it a go yourself. Try and deconstruct this literary mess that the AI produces, and I find it quite. I do little exercises like this all the time, and I find it does really sharpen your writing skills, especially when it comes to editing and being quite brutal. And that is a key word I want to point out, because people might be sitting there questioning, why am I using AI stories? And it's because I can be brutal. We can have a laugh with this because there's no AI feelings to be hurt until the AI overlords take over, and then you might get a bit annoyed about things I said now about the writing, but who cares? We're going to have a bit of fun with it. That's the main thing. And hopefully learn a few things too. So enough of the chit chat. Let's get on with today's episode, and we're going to look at high fantasy. Now, I'm using ChatGPT to generate the story. You can use whatever, really. It all comes down to the prompt that you're going to use if you want to do this yourself at home. But I am most familiar with ChatGPT, and this is the prompt that I've chosen to use. I want you to write for me a one-paragraph story that's written very poorly, but does carry a basic storyline that can be worked on. Line-to-line editing, or line-to-line writing should be poor, bordering on the comical. Use basic grammar so it's not awful. And today, like I said, we're going to start with a high fantasy story. And this is I do like writing high fantasy. So start with something a little bit easier, because I've never done this before. I just came up with the idea. I've generated a story there as a little test, Derek the Brave. It was quite funny to work on something like that. But I've never actually gone through this. Obviously, I've gone through it with my own stories, but for the purposes of doing it together, I've not done this before. So let's see the story we get. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my editing checklist. I'll read out the story as well. I will see what we can make of it. It's quite a long paragraph, which it means it's going to be a bit harder to do. But I'm sure we're going to be able to cut a lot of it out. So, this is the story. I'm going to start by reading it out. In the kingdom of Eldoria, there was a man called Brin, who was a knight, but not a very good one, and one day he was told by the king to go and stop a dark wizard named Maldrake, who lived in a tower that was quite far away, and also spooky. So Brin said yes, even though he was a bit tired and hadn't eaten much. And he got on his horse. Sorry, I'm breathless because there's no bloody full stops. Whew. And he got on his horse, which he didn't like him very much. And he got on his horse, which didn't like him very much, and set off slowly while thinking about how dangerous it all sounded. Full stop. On the way, he met a strange old woman who may have been magical, but it was not very clear, and she gave him a sword that looked important, but also a bit rusty, and told him something vague, like, "You will need this probably," which Brin thought was helpful enough. When he got to the tower, it was taller than expected, and had a door that was already open, which seemed suspicious, but he went in anyway and shouted for Maldrake, who appeared almost immediately. which saved time. And they had a fight that was not very graceful, but still quite serious. And Brin mostly waved the sword around until something worked. The wizard fell in a way that suggested he was defeated. After that, Brin felt proud and also confused about how easy it was, and he went back to the kingdom where the king thanked him a lot, and there was a feast, although Brin kept wondering if the wizard might not actually be fully gone, which made the ending feel a bit unsure. Oof. First thoughts on that then. Um, Needs more sentences. It's a bit of a coming of age story. So you got a key character, and he's not very good. He seems a bit dim. So before we dive in any further, I will just talk to you about my editing process and this checklist that I've put together for the purposes of these one paragraph stories, because you don't want to get too into it really. Like I say, there's no dialogue here really. So the first three for me are the most important, and the holy trinity of all good stories, I would say. And this is the formula that I tend to follow when I write my stories. So it makes sense when you edit and to start here and to make sure that you're ticking all the boxes. So number one is basically, what is the point of this story? What are the themes? What's the premise behind it? The second one, who are the key characters? What do they want more than anything? Like Maldrake, for example, seems a bit. Don't really know. He just seems to exist. A dark wizard, Maldrake. What we're looking for as well, that sort of brings it all together, is the conflict. What is the conflict? What's stopping the characters from getting what they want? And that gives you basically the story and a good plot to work with. I've also put setting. I think you always have to consider setting on some level, even if you're writing a crime novel. I've just been reading Ian Rankin, and even though a lot of them novels are set, the Rebus novels, sorry, are set in Edinburgh, this one was actually set in Aberdeen, and they went on oil rigs and stuff like that. So, I mean, the setting changed quite a way. I mean, we're only doing a one paragraph story, but setting's always quite interesting to think about, especially with a high fantasy. And lastly, line editing, and we're going to see as a little challenge if there's any salvageable lines here. So, what is the point of this story then? I think if we're going to say anything, we're looking at coming of age. I get the sense that Brin is young, but is there anything really about his age? We just know that he's tired. I hide these things actually. To stop that, we've got no reason why. Who lived in the tower? Why is the king entrusted Brin with this task? Why doesn't his horse like him very much? It's quite a big thing actually. I've been writing a story recently with a character who has quite a good relationship with his horse, and I feel like it's a good way, a good device to make your character likeable. So the fact that Brin, his horse, doesn't like him, that could make Brin a bit not very ideal for a main character, a hero. So maybe I'll have to think about that. We've also got the strange old woman who gives him the sword. Sword of Destiny. Looks like I like the vibe. Important but rusty. What can we think about for what makes something look important? This is like an example of telling instead of showing, which writing, then you've probably come across this an awful lot. But I mean, this is a good example. I've just asked the question here. It's like, what makes this sword look important? So let's give a specific detail and see what we can come up with. You will need this probably. I quite like the idea that the witch is quite flippant. Like, not another one. Off you go on your quest, kind of thing. That'd be might be something to play with. Hopefully enough. Yeah, I don't mind that because like everyone seems like if we could actually make this a funny story, almost a bit Pratchett like, with everyone's not really asked, but everyone's just got to do something that they don't really want to do. Now we there's not much going on there. Told by the king, meets the stranger woman, and then gets to the tower. Already open, which seems suspicious. I need to turn Grammarly off because that's doing my head in. Off you go. No helpful suggestions anyway. Doing my head in. Right, so when you got to the tower, it was taller than expected. Yeah. Don't really know what that is even worth putting in. I had a door that was already open. Seems suspicious. I went in anyway, shouted for Maldrake. So he's come in, guns blazing. But that, I mean, that kills the conflict. I mean, the main issue with this ending is that there is no conflict, and point 3 there. Or the conflict's over fast. If the conflict dies quite quick, it kills all the tension. And yeah, well, so save time. The fight was not very graceful, so I mean, you could work on that. You know what I mean? It'd be a scramble. Like I say, Brin's not very good, but he's in a desperate situation. Mostly waved the sword around until something worked. Again, it could be quite comical there. I really don't like this. He fell over in a way that suggested he was defeated. Because if we want this ending to work a bit better with the uncertainty, we need to have something here that, oh, he strikes him down, and he turns back around to see, and he's gone. Like that kind of thing. I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out sometimes. It also leaves the reader wondering a bit what happens next after that. Confused about how easy it was. And he went back to the kingdom where the king thanked him a lot. How could he thank him, I wonder? It was a feast. Man, if I killed Dark Wizard, what would I want as payment? Feast a good start. Party. Nice house maybe, somewhere quiet. A bit of time off. But we'll see. It might be a greedy king. We need to think about these things in not loads of detail, because like I say, we only probably need one thing per character, and it's not too bad. So I don't think we go for coming of age now. On reflection, as I'm feeling humour is the way to go with this. Yeah, I mean, I did say to give it a comical slant in the prompt, but let's have a little look through the point of the story then. So we've got Brin, who's pretty down and out. Hungry and tired. Not very. I'm guessing pretty poor. Maybe he's let down the king one too many times, and this is his final chance. To redeem himself. Otherwise, he will be banished. Or worse still, executed. I think we go with executed. Makes the stakes a little bit higher. So yeah, I mean that's a way that we can go. It actually gives him a reason to go, to compelling reason. And then he was told by the king. Yeah, he's just a clumsy bastard. So I mean, what's the point of this then? Is we can come back to it really. Sometimes it comes to you early on the theme or the point of the story. Sometimes it comes a bit later as you're going. I do like to have it before I start though, because it does give a nice sort of framework for everything that you do, especially when you're writing a one paragraph story. But for now, we'll move on. I'll come back to it. We'll have a look at characters because we've got Brin. Brin is the central character. We've got the king. We've also got the old woman, and we've got Maldrake. Now, Brin. Brinacy, what are you like, my friend? So he's a bit useless, incompetent. On his last legs, basically, with the king. If he screws up again, he's out. King, short-tempered man. The king's off and on. Who loves to throw a party? Feast. We don't need much. We only need one paragraph. Strange old woman. Flippant. We were going over the flippant, weren't we? Flippant. Not disinterested in the quest. Just wants rid of Brin. Maldrake, we don't really know much other than that he's a dark wizard, which is not the most helpful. But it gives you a bit of a sense of who he is, unless we play around with it. What if he's quite like a kindly old man, kind of dark wizard? Yeah, maybe. We like to throw in a kindly old man. Why not? Where's the conflict? We'll come to that in a sec. I don't even come here. You rack my mind. I don't think. And I mean, we're going to start with this just because it's the core of the vibe. Every dog has its day. And this is Brin's chance to shine. But I don't really like it because it's cliche. And we're not allowed to do cliche things. It's going to be original. So we can come back to that. But we know what we're working with. That's just for our purposes anyway. So conflict, my favourite thing, conflict, because it's what makes stories interesting at the end of the day. And we've got, let's just list conflict. So we've got Brin, under threat of execution. The king. Brin forced to defeat a dark wizard. He's underqualified to handle. Let's definitely say that. Those are the main conflicts, aren't they? And we've got, I like mini conflicts as well. What else can we do? He seems unable to wield the sword in this battle. Fight not very graceful. Once he wields the sword, so something worked, but it doesn't make sense if he's a knight. He would at least have some kind of training. Sword is unwieldy. Maybe it's like it could be like a ridiculously big sword, like something from Final Fantasy. Large and heavy, like a claymore, and he's only a little guy, let's say. Alright, we're getting somewhere. I feel like we're getting somewhere. Progress, conflict, back to this. Sword is unwieldy, that's a bit of a conflict. And then at the end, is he kill the wizard? Maybe the wizard could say something. Yeah, wizard leaves parting word, gives a parting word. Shares a few parting words. A few parting and damning words. do, do, do. So, where are we? Setting. There's absolutely nothing on the setting. We just know that there's a tall tower, which is taller than he thought. There's a king, because there's kingdom, so there must be some kind of castle or something. I don't know. What can we think of for the setting? King lives in a castle. There's really not much room to say anything in all this. Oh, Eldoria. We've got a kingdom called Eldoria. Kingdom called Eldoria. We need some kind of high seat of power. So, kings. I'm just going to put notes here. Kings. Castle / home. Need something for that. We've also got Maldrake's very tall tower. Where does they find the woman? I say on the way. So we need to probably define that. Where should we find this flippant old woman? Don't know why I'm getting swamp. Swamp is popping into my head, so let's just go with it. Swamp where the old woman lives. Middle. It just seems a bit mad to have a witch just living up there. It sounds quite funny. And also, if you're struggling through a swamp and then some old woman gives you a big massive sword to carry, you're going to be the most grateful for that, are you? Right, I just need to pad this out a bit now. Line editing I'm going to go through in a bit, and we're going to try and see if we can save any lines. But just need one line, something to make this stand out. Kind of feel like Eldoria. It's a bit of a grand, gives a bit of a grand vibe. So we can maybe go something like a tall city, built upon a steep hill that stands out in the distance. Something like that. We'll polish it, but just something. King's Castle. Home lives in the tallest of towers. Almost a bit of a dig at Maldrake's very tall tower. Not quite as tall as the king's. Right. I'm going to have this as almost like, what would a Dark Wizard's tower look like? I can imagine that, but if he's a kind of the old man, we want to try and play around with the tropes. So let's say we also want to be spooky because it was meant to be spooky. So we could have like sort of overgrown weeds and vines, shadowy windows, almost like a dark stone. Swamp where the old woman lives, just a swamp really. Lives in a hut. It's basically a place generally looks inhospitable. Right, we've got the bare bones, we've extracted what we can from this, and I'm going to have a little look here at anything we can salvage. I do try and, when I'm editing anything, do a lot of editing in the day job. I always try and change as little as possible, but this is very, very bad. This is hard. If someone gave you this, like you would say you need to rewrite it. But is there anything here? Are there any little nuggets? On the way, there's a strange old woman, maybe a magical woman. It's not very clear. She gives him a sword that looks important, but also a bit rusty. No. Oh, this is such a bad story. Badly written story. Oh, I don't know if we could salvage anything. Maybe this. In the Kingdom of Eldoria, we can save that. I just tried to look for like decent little bits, any kind of flourish. Like if you were editing this for a person, you always want to try and find the voice and help bring the voice out. I always imagine it like you've got a shoot coming up through the soil, and it just can't get past maybe like a bit of a rock or like a heavy clump of soil, and you just have to just clear the path a bit. And that's what I feel like it is sometimes with editing. We just need to clear the unnecessary bits out the way and let the real gem sort of golden part of the story shine through. But it's hard to find anything here, honestly. It really is difficult. If you guys can find something, you let me know. I might keep this as the opening. The Kingdom of Eldoria. Okay. We'll keep that. That'll be the opening. There's literally nothing that you can salvage, really, which Brin thought was helpful enough. I don't mind this line. I really don't. Because I think it's quite funny if it ties in with the character, but like, he's a bit dim, you know what I mean? Let's just put it down here for now. I think it's a bit telly, but when the stories are short, you can get away with it. He went in anyway. Shelter for Maldrake. That's not too bad because you could say, oh, well, what choice did he have? So he's going for it, you know what I mean? All in. Yeah, but these are quite generic sentences, like I was saying before. You're looking for flourishes, things that are written in a unique way, or metaphors and similes, and the nice bits of sentences, the funky adjectives, and there really is not much. Well, right, look, I've got a bit of everything here, so I'm going to pause. I'm going to go on a little writing sesh. I'll be back and I'll talk you through what I've done. Right, so I've had a little go with this story. Right, this was originally, let's see, 270 words. It wasn't very good. I was just going to be really blunt about it. It's a crap story. But, well, not a bad concept, but very poorly executed. I think we can all agree on that. What I've done is about 100 words long there. It's about 380 words. I'm going to read it once and then I'll go back through it, and then you can see yourself the different bits that hopefully it's a first draft, so just be kind. I'm doing this for all of our sakes. In the Kingdom of Eldoria, in its grand towering city of Eldor, Brin trudged through the rain, feet and legs aching, stomach grumbling. King Ulek had demanded his presence. Fail me again, and you'll serve no one but death, Ulek spat in his face, and on his irritable horse Brin went, heading west for the tower of the dark wizard Maldrake. More than a few times he thought of abandoning his quest and fleeing, but he kept on. Maybe I could do something right for once, he thought. His progress slowed when he reached the swamplands, each step a battle to keep his boots. He grew weary, and the call to give up came again, but then he saw a foot. An old woman emerged, holding a claymore, a sword at least 2/3 her size. Good luck on your quest, she croaked, squinting up at him with beady eyes. You'll probably need this. She held out the sword, which Brin thought was helpful enough until he tried to pick it up. Lugging his new sword on his back, he stumbled and staggered through the rest of the swamp, then through forest until he arrived at a point on his map, Maldrake's tower. Only he couldn't see anything. Through the brush he scrambled, and there, surrounded by trees, was a tower of dark stone reaching up to the sky. He found an open door, a basket of flowers and gardening tools beside it. He frowned, turned back to the threshold, and summoned the strength to take out his sword. Was it a trap? He went in anyway and shouted for Maldrake. Hello? A soft voice said behind him. A kindly old man stood in the doorway, long white hair and a beard. He smiled. Brin tried to swing his sword, Maldrake moved out the way, and Brin swung again. Kept swinging until he hit something and heard Maldrake cry out. He dropped his unwieldy blade, turned and found the room empty. On the ground he found drops of blood. Of Maldrake there was no sign. Returning home, Brin's cheeks burned with pride as the king showered him with praise before all the great and good at the grand feast. But alone, later that night, he wondered about Maldrake, if he still lived, and if he wanted revenge. So, that was my attempt, based on what we had there. I found I had to stop and think. That's why. I couldn't just have the camera rolling while I was sitting there like this for ages, and tapping away at the keyboard and deleting stuff. It took me about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes to go through that again and draft this. This is a first draft. It needs work. I think it's too long for one. It's too wordy. Based on, we were trying to aim for something like 300 words and it's got over. But it's not that long. I also don't really think it's that good in terms of a complete story. But I'm keen to see how you guys find the experience if you give it a go. So that's my go. I will share it in the description as well. So thank you for watching this first episode of Fixing Bad Writing. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've maybe learned something new, and hopefully just got a bit of an insight into what it's like to see someone else edit something. A bit of a strange experience for me personally, but I am going to do more of these, and each one I'm going to do a different genre. I am going to challenge myself with this as well, and the idea is to challenge you guys, test yourselves, and see how much you can improve your writing. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do head over to Discord. The link to join is in the description. You can share your stories in there. Thank you again. And if you want to get notified when more of these come out, please do subscribe and give us a little thumbs up.